Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, the channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Please subscribe. Today, the news, I think, in the football world has been squarely on Ekitike, PSG's former striker, who moved to Frankfurt about a year and a half ago, whose looks about set to move from Frankfurt to Liverpool for somewhere between 80 and 100 million euros. So big move for the player to the Premier League, to one of the biggest clubs in the world. And I think there's a lot of question marks around it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this. And in particular, I think from a PSG standpoint, obviously the player was with us up until a year and a half ago. We sold him to Frankfurt for, somewhere in the area of 25, 30 million euro. A year and a half later, he's worth nearly 100. So, let's go into a bit more detail, see if this was a mistake on the side of PSG, or if it was just, not meant to be / dodge bullet on our part as well. And I think it does do us well to take a step back and not let the immediacy of the football world take away any sense or rationale on this. So I think the place that I would start is really with the stats, because I think that's really a good way of taking every emotion out of it. And the comparison that's been made is really with Kolo Muani. If you remember back then, we sold Ekitike. We put him to the side because we put him to the side for 6 months before letting him go to Frankfurt, because Kolo Muani and Ramos arrived. And obviously Kolo Muani was coming to us from Frankfurt. Ekitike went there. So there was and there is a reality of we got Kolo Muani from Frankfurt for like 90 plus million euros, and we gave them Ekitike for 30 or so. And so the comparison, I think, in that context, is pretty fair to look at. And hopefully it helps inform the thinking that we've got on the player. But I think first, Kolo Muani in PSG, he did really one season with us where he was actually playing, and then 6 months the following season, the first 6 months, he was kind of on the bench and put to the side because he hadn't agreed to move in the summer, and so he didn't play for 6 months before moving in the winter. So I'll just look at that one season where he was actually part of the squad. And that season, he played in 32 games, 25 in the league, 4 in the Champions League, 3 in the Cup, scored 4 goals and 4 assists. He was on the pitch for nearly 1,400 minutes, and so he had a goal contribution pretty much every 175 minutes. So if you compare with Randal Kolo Muani's season, in PSG, which was last season, where he was also featuring, he had 39 games, 26 in the league, 10 in the Champions League, 3 in the Cup, 9 goals, 6 assists. He played bit more than 1,900 minutes, and so he had a goal contributions every 128 minutes. So not stellar stats by any means, and I think the visual impression in both cases was really not positive at all. But likes to I guess Kolo Muani contributed a bit more within that season in PSG than Ekitike did. And then I think in Frankfurt, I'll compare this season for Ekitike, the season that just ended, which is really the one where he exploded onto the world, and Kolo Muani's season in Frankfurt before he moved to PSG, which was also the one where he was, in Bundesliga, very successful and really playing a lot for Frankfurt. So on Ekitike's side, tough name, Ekitike's side, this season in Frankfurt, he featured in 48 games, 33 in the Bundesliga, 12 in Europa League, and 3 in the Cup. He scored 22 goals, 15 in the Bundesliga, 4 Europa League, and 3 in the Cup, and he had 12 assists. 12 assists. So in total, 3,644 minutes on the pitch, and so 1 goal contributions every 107.2 minutes. In comparison, Kolo Muani in Frankfurt in the 2022-2023 seasons, 46 games, 32 in the league, 7 in the Champions League. They played Champions League then and not Europa League like this year. 6 in the Cup, and they played in the European Super Cup. Kolo Muani had 23 goals, 17 assists, and was on the pitch for 3,634 minutes. So literally 10 minutes less than what Ekitike did this season. And Kolo Muani had a goal contribution every 90.85 minutes. So very much like, better than Ekitike, like not massively better, but like definitely better than him. And I think like, even if I look at Kolo Muani's half season in Juve this season, and I compare it with Kolo Muani's half season in Frankfurt last year, so the idea being to compare like after their stint in PSG where they weren't successful, what do they produce next and what do they go on to do next? So Ekitike in Frankfurt played in 16 games, Bundesliga and couple of appearances in Champions League. 4 goals, 2 assists in 780 minutes, so goal contributions every 130. Kolo Muani in Juve, 22 games, 16 Serie A, 2 Champions League, 3 Club World Cup and 1 Cup, 10 goals, 3 assists. 1,655 minutes on the pitch, so but more than double what Ekitike did, and a goal contribution every 127 minutes. So basically the same kind of ratio as Ekitike. So all of this to say, I guess a few things. One, we do have a cult of immediacy in football. And I think, we're seeing headlines that Ekitike is moving to Liverpool for 100 million. And the first reflex is to just like look at what we sold him for and go, it's our fault and we're not working well. I think in this situation, if I look at the cold data, I would say that like Kolo Muani's move for 90 million to PSG was probably more logical than Ekitike moving to Liverpool for the same kind of money. Kolo Muani had better stats. He was established in the French team. He was coming out of the World Cup in Qatar, where he was quite impactful for the French team. Didn't succeed at everything, and obviously had a big miss in the final. But he was part of the squad. He was an important cog in it, and he did get a lot of attention there. He was also more experienced. He had been from Nantes to Frankfurt, and so like he had that intermediate step that Ekitike didn't have before joining PSG. On the other side, I think Ekitike, like, there's a couple of things. So like I said, like, I very much question right now the transfer to Liverpool. I think, great for him, obviously, like nothing against the player, wish him all the best and so on. So great for him if he can move on to Liverpool and hopefully he'll be successful there. But at this point, it feels like he's very much untested, like anywhere close to the levels that he's playing at in Liverpool. You've got to remember as well, I think it's one of the things that we talked about a lot when it came to Kolo Muani. Then the Bundesliga is a league, and Germany in general is a country where attackers really have their kind of an open bar for them. The defense, Pacho set aside, I think like the defense are generally like not the strictest in the world. And so attackers, as soon as they're quick, they can take runs at defense and run at their back. They do score a lot of goals. And I think if you look at the top scorer in the Bundesliga in previous year, there's always, players that score a lot of goal and then like don't really confirm that when they move to different leagues. So hopefully that's not the case for Ekitike, but I would add that pinch of salt, I guess, to it. And then I guess there's a question of his journey with PSG. If you remember, we recruited him back then at the back of really like one good season with Reims in Ligue 1. He was a very young player. I think he was 19 back then, 19 or 20. So, very young. He had one season in Reims where he played about 1,500 minutes and delivered a goal contribution like every 100 minutes or so, which, for a breakout season, I guess was very impressive. He started attracting a lot of attention. When he came to PSG, Newcastle was really, really keen to sign him as well. So there was that little bit of competition there, which made us pay maybe a bit more than we wanted to pay for the player. And yeah, he came on to PSG. That was Galtier's PSG, so the PSG of Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar. And he came in really at that, first substitute space in attack. So he did get like a fair amount of playing time in PSG, like we said. He did feature in a lot of games, but I think like for a young player, the general sensation was that maybe the step was too big for him and he wasn't ready. And also, like the environment within the club was really not making things easy for him. So the three stars that their starting spots really saved up, no matter what they were doing, and so the rest of the squad had be happy with getting the leftovers and working twice as hard to accommodate them. Um, so for a very young player, obviously not the ideal environment. And I think at the same time, like what a lot of people I think now have forgotten is that um, Ekitike back then, not only did he have a lot of playing time, he did have like a fair amount of playing time, at least definitely enough to show what he could do. Um, he didn't really, obviously, statistically, he didn't really show that much. 4 goals, 4 assists for a strikers with this kind of playing time, it's really, really low. Um, but also, like the impression that we got on the pitch was really a player who was not delivering on the promises that we had seen in Reims the year before. And I think he was maybe like trying too hard, forcing his game a little bit. Personally, like I was giggling a bit earlier because I was remembering a lot of times during the game he tried to like flick the ball back with his heel or like try to do like technical tricks that were like clearly beyond his means at that point. And I think even when he arrived in PSG, there were a couple of like slightly less than ideal declarations in the media of himself, like presenting himself as ready to play with Messi and Neymar and so on. So it wasn't. I think it wasn't the best attitude to have for a youngster. Obviously, there was also, like always in PSG, a lot of conversation as to whether the price tag that we paid for him impacted him mentally throughout the season that he was there, whether he wasn't really ready for this kind of pressure. I also remember there was a lot of chatter around him not necessarily having the best attitude, whether it's in training or outside. Thinking that he was already arrived at the highest level. And I think if you're, a 19, 20-year-old like player and you had one good season in Ligue 1 and you get the opportunity to play for PSG, the stats ultimately, like we can do whatever, like first season for him. It's not really the thing that's going to matter most to me, to be honest. But if he doesn't have a good attitude in training, if he's like cocky on the pitch during the time that he gets, if he's like, not keeping his head down in the media, it's a lot of warning bells that ring up in my head and that really show a player that might not have what it takes in the short term to succeed in Paris. And I think, at the end of the season, Neymar left and Messi left, and we really started reorganizing the team with Luis Enrique coming on board. Sadly, it also coincided with Luis Campos bringing on Gonzalo Ramos and Nasser on his side trying and signing Kolo Muani. And so that kind of big number nines arriving in attack, really sealed his fate in PSG and made it basically impossible for him to have any playing time in that team. Then like there was a lot of back and forth at that point between him and the club because the club wanted to push him out, quite simply. And he didn't want to go back then, and so he had to sit 6 months on the bench and watch other people play. It's not like it's never the most glorious thing in the world. It's one of those things in football that happen. I think ultimately, like he wasn't gonna get any playing time, like anyway. So probably would have been better for him to just accept the move from the get-go. I'm also, not in the back rooms and not part of those discussions, so I don't know exactly what's being said and what happens. I think it's unfortunate anyway, both for the club and for the players. But I'll leave it at that because I don't know all the things that went into it. So failure from PSG, like it's also a question of financials. And when it comes to Ekitike in PSG, there's different numbers which are circulating. So I'll tell you the ones that I heard. I heard two numbers on how much we paid to bring him to PSG. I heard that we paid 35 million euros, and on the other side, on Transfermarkt, it says 28.5. So 35, 28.5, this kind of ratio. And then, like, when he left for Frankfurt, first 6 months were on loan with like an almost automatic buying clause, which activated. And it's either like 30 million or 20 million. So either we went from 35 to 30 or like 28.5 to 20. And at the same time, when he left, there's a 20% percentage on his future transfer. So if he moves to Liverpool for 100 million euros, we're going to get lucky with that, and we're going to get a lot of money. And so ultimately, like, we're not losing money with Ekitike. We made our money back, and we're likely to make a little bit of benefit. So I don't think it's a disastrous piece of business. I think it's probably a player that wasn't ready for PSG in the best of cases for him. In the worst of cases, that's a player who's going to be setting himself up right now to like go on to a second failure in his career. I don't wish that. I wish him the best, but if we compare with Kolo Muani and we compare what he produced in Frankfurt and kind of extrapolate that into the Premier League and Liverpool, I honestly, like, I have my doubts on why and how he'll be a lot more successful than Darwin Nunez, for example, or like other big name strikers who went on to the EPL and didn't really blaze a trail there. So we'll see. Time will tell. Newcastle has been after him for the longest time as well. So, I think his game does, to some extent, fit quite well with the Premier League. He's very fast. He's got decent technique. Obviously, he's a goal scorer with decent stats as well in goal scoring. So he can contribute, and we will only time will tell at that point. There's no way to know for sure. But yeah, when it comes to PSG, I've got to say personally, like, this one doesn't leave a bad taste in my mouth at all. I think we took a chance on what was a new star in Ligue 1, and I think ultimately that's exactly what we want to be doing. And we saw with Barcola and with Doué, we took the same kind of chance on players who had one season or half a season in Ligue 1 at the highest level. Those two really worked out for us. Ekitike didn't. It was maybe too early in our project. Maybe it wasn't the right environment. But ultimately, like, you see the season we just had, and we won the Champions League, and obviously we play with a false nine and Dembele out there. I don't really see within that team, even the Ekitike of Frankfurt, who's performing at the top of his game. I really don't see where we put him. Would he be like the equivalent of a Gonzalo Ramos? I honestly don't think he'd score as much goal as Ramos. On the left, where he can play, we've got both Kvara and Barcola. I'd take any of them with my eyes closed over Ekitike. So yeah, for me, just sometimes things would work out, sometimes they don't. In this case, it didn't work out. The player went on to do other things, and ultimately seems to be doing well in his career. We'll see what the potential move to Liverpool ends up looking like, and whether he ends up being successful there. As you understand, I've got my doubts about that, but I don't know everything, so hopefully it will work out for him. And I think ultimately, like, we made some money with him. The guy contributed for one season, and yeah, we went on to bigger and better things. So no drama on my side. I don't put a lot of blame on PSG on this one. If anything, I think the blame was more in terms of having Galtier as a coach, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, for me, that's really where it was problematic. And if you want another one, like Nasser getting too involved in the Kolo Muani deal and really signing him at all cost and very much above the price that we should have been paying for him. Cautionary tale, by the way. We talk a lot about Zabarni, and I see a lot of people commenting online like, "Oh, Campos should just spend the extra 10 million and give Bournemouth whatever they ask for." Sometimes this is what happens as well. So it pays off to be a little cautious with our money, even if we do have a lot. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens to Ekitike. We'll see if the move to Liverpool gets finalized. But for now, that's kind of what I had on the topic. On the topic of nine, actually, like one more thing, because this one is funny. I don't know if you saw a completely like not very reliable insider on Twitter came out yesterday with a news that AC Milan has started negotiating with us for Gonzalo Ramos, and they have a 30 million euro budget that they believe would be sufficient to get the player. Just the value of Gonzalo Ramos on Transfermarkt is 40 million, and we paid 65 million for him. So there is like just not a chance in hell of that happening. But apparently AC Milan is sniffing around at Gonzalo Ramos. So maybe there's a bigger curse around number 9 in Paris that we should be talking about. But yeah. Anyway, that was it. Like I said, let me know what you guys think on the whole Ekitike thing. Do you think that was, poorly managed by PSG? Do you think ultimately it's just bad timing, bad luck, and stuff happens, and we can't really do anything about it? And what do you think that move to Liverpool makes sense? Honestly, like I'm flabbergasted looking at this and scratching my head a little bit. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please leave a like on this video. Please do subscribe on the channel, and also during this whole thing, I had at the bottom of the screen flashing where my accounts on X and Instagram. I just created the Instagram, so please give those a follow, and you'll see some content there as well. Every day, pretty much like I do on YouTube. A video a day is what I'm trying to do. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, give likes, hit the bell. Man, so many things to do for you guys. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, and don't forget, ici c'est Paris!